One of the most common types of attacks we see are business email compromise. In business email compromise, someone gets access to some conversation in your email stream and then causes an action. And one of the most common actions is either a fake invoice that resolves to a fake payment, or changing an existing invoice, or some sort of wire fraud. So I want to step through kind of what happens. It's a very common playbook. There are slight variations along the way, but you'll get an understanding of kind of what is possible and what is capable. So the first step that happens is an initial compromise. And the initial compromise, we'll call that initial compromise, typically happens with you receive a phishing email, you click on a link, maybe it's a fraudulent PDF, takes you to a OneDrive, asks you to log in with your credentials, and then next thing you know, you're given access to some document. But on the back end, somebody has either taken a token that you use to log into Microsoft 365 or G Suite, or they've gotten access because you've given the okay. And so that once they have access to your mailbox, they do a couple things. They try to create some sort of persistence. And the persistence typically happens by either trying to forward your mailbox, or they will add a second MFA to your account. So just in case something happens, they can gain access. Next, they review your mailbox. So they will read your email. They'll look for things that are invoice related, wire transfer related, and they collect to see like where are you paying it. So for example, for us, if somebody gained access to my mailbox, they'd see that I would get invoices from, say, an outside provider that we use for a client that has offices in another city or another state. And if they can then use that information to go on to the next part of the attack. So they'll say that, okay, I'm going to set up a forwarding rule to either forward the emails that I receive from this vendor to a folder that's in Outlook that probably I don't check. It could be your archive folder, it could be your RSS feeds folder, it could be your items folder. So they'll move any email coming from that vendor into that mailbox, so you don't see those messages happening going forward. The next thing they do is they create a lookalike domain. So they will, sometimes known as a doppelganger. So the lookalike domain looks like it's the same domain that you're logging into, but they'll change a letter, they'll switch a number, they'll use a Cyrillic alphabet. So they'll generate a new domain, and then they'll start communicating to the victim from that domain. So as far as they know, the conversation hasn't now stopped. So the real domain messages are going into that folder that they forwarded to, but the lookalike domain is now where they're communicating to you on in real life. Then they send fake instructions. So from your mailbox now, or the victim's mailbox, send a fake instruction about a change in banking information or some other thing to the vendor. And so now that vendor is like, the vendor now sees a new piece of information, and they will initiate payments based on that new information. Now, you're not seeing this conversation because it's all happening this folder on the back end, but any other conversations you do have with the vendor is happening to this doppelganger domain, because that's who they are actively, and you're just responding to emails, not realizing. So then the payment is made. And once the payment is made, after that, they may do some cleanup. So this is a fairly straightforward step. So this can happen either on the company that's creating the invoice. They're the ones who actually get the breach in this case, or you as the victim, the company is getting the person receiving those invoices. So it could happen on either end of that transaction. It really depends on what they find when they review your mailbox, what their possibilities are. From here, they can figure out, okay, this is somebody that I can leverage to either get paid from someone else or get them to pay me. So that's kind of the here. So what can you do in these cases? There's a couple places that you can identify and prevent this from happening. One is obviously from the initial compromise, robust anti-phishing. That's number one. Then you have some things like browser security, so that if you do click on a link, if you access a location that looks a little bit strange, the browser security should prevent you from connecting to that location. And then the second thing is that preventing access to your systems from non-sanctioned computers using something like conditional access policies or some other policies. G Suite has similar things. Microsoft has different things. Based on your environment, those are the kind of solutions that you can put in place. So that's one area. So the next thing you do is you can identify when this takes place. So if a rule is created, if the person, hopefully your account doesn't have administrative access to your entire mail domain, but if you do, they might not use. Are you communicating with a strange domain, a newly generated domain? Likely this only got registered in the last couple weeks. Sometimes this review time, it could be hours, it could be depending on the patience of the attacker and whether the attacker is leveraging credentials that they got themselves immediately or they outsource that to a third party, because they do that as well. And then of course, in this area where you get the fake instruction and the payment, you have to have robust financial controls around how you do business here. So you get new instructions or you get a new invoice with different banking details. You need to really review that with the company some other way outside of email. Now you have the concept of deepfakes and whatever. So in this typical scenario, we're not seeing deepfakes yet get involved with it, but I'm sure that's going to happen in the near future where somebody's actually faking your voice. But the likelihood of that happening is currently fairly low. So this is another place that you can potentially block up. And then on the cleanup side, this likely means that if they have access to your logs, which means they've been able to escalate, get into your admin accounts, is then they're doing some cleanup. You can also catch them here, but by that time, it's kind of too late. The best place to catch them is in this initial stage. So those gives you an idea of kind of how a business email compromise would work and possibly some areas where you can catch it. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. If God forbid something happens and you need to look, or you saw some unusual banking activity and you're not sure, give us a ring. We can probably take a look and see if there's been an issue in the past. Thanks.